Okay, so now what if I have two parallel lines? There are many properties that can be applied to a parallel lines. There are two parallel lines and another line that cuts it. It's called a transversal line. Now imagine if you have a sandwich and you're trying to cut it. Just acute angle pair, you cut the top slice, the bottom slice would be cut at the same angle. So if I'm labeling two angles, observe this one, A, and this one, P. They will be equal, and this is one of the very ignored property, although it is a very the easily observed property, which is called corresponding angles. They correspond, they are at the exact same position, that when two parallel lines are cut by a third transversal line, so that transversal line makes the same angle with both the lines, so I'll call it corresponding angles. So A is equals to P, which is called a corresponding angle. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Good. So now moving on to another property we have already studied, vertically opposite in the previous one. Now, if this is A and this is P, I'll make another angle, B. So the corresponding angle to B will be this one, Q. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Same reason, because they correspond, they are at the exact same position. B is Q, corresponding angles. Okay, now, can I say that A plus B is 180?
Yes.
And in place of A, can I write P?
Yes, because they are same.
Very good, because they are equal. And this property is what is called interior angles. And
Oh,
when two angles between a parallel line are formed, their sum is equal to 180. And the property that we call it is interior angles. Is this clear? Because A
yes, sir.
is equals to P, in place of A, I write up the P, and that is how I get this answer. Is this clear now?
Yes.
Okay, now if this is A, I'm calling this C. A is equals to C. What is the reason? We have already studied it.
Vertically opposite angle.
Very good. They are vertically opposite angles. So because A is also equal to P, now can I say P will be equal to C?
B.
Because
Yes.
A is C and A is P. So can I say P is equals to C? And
Yes.
this is called alternate angles. And this is the most used property by students. I don't know for what reason, but they are pretty comfortable with using it. कि सर Z बनता है, Z property है, that when you form a Z between two parallel lines, the angles formed in those Z are same. But remember, this is a property only with parallel lines and cannot be applied anywhere else. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
जैसे Z जरूरी नहीं है ऐसा हो, Z ऐसे भी हो सकता है. Be clear about it. But as long as they are parallel, these angles will be the same. Is this clear now?
Yes.
So these are a few properties that we'll be using. Make sure you write all of these down. These are with
Yes.
parallel lines. Okay. Now moving on to a few questions using these properties, some very basic ones. We need to calculate unknown angles. Okay, how do I calculate? Again, we'll try to follow the alphabetical order in order to help us understand all the properties. So how do I calculate A?
Uh, Sir, A would be 31 degrees.
Very good. And the
Alternate
reason is,
angles.
please make a habit of writing down the reason, because then you're familiar with it. And when the question asks us to do so, we are already there. We do not need to memorize it or rote learn it, because we have used it so often. So A is 31 alternate angles. Now what about B?
Action would be
The sum of 35 and
I
31
mean, what? Uh,
alternate
uh,
angles.
okay, sir.
I'll show you again. Don't worry if you're unable to understand it. Do you see this
Z.
Z?
Yes, sir.
And the red Z must be between parallel lines. I cannot just make a Z on my own. Be clear about it. So now how do I find C? First, let's find C.
C. Wait a second, sir. Sir, C and would be equal to 60 degree.
Wrong. See, I told you before telling all the properties, I told you that the most ignored property is the corresponding angle. C is just equal to 45 because it is a corresponding angle.
Oh, yes. Sorry, sir. Sorry.
देखा ऑब्जर्व किया these are the two parallel lines and another transversal line cuts through. What is the acute angle that it makes on the top of on top with the first line? 45. So
Yes.
again when it will cut the second line
Same.
it will again make the same angle.
Okay.
I told you it's the most common property, most easily observable, and yet most ignored property. Now, what about D?
So D would be equal to 60.
I told you,
Yeah,
see, this is the property that students get familiar with the quickest. Okay, now what about E? How do we find E in this case?
wait a second.
We will try to make an imaginary parallel line.
Okay.
Now, if this is 37, this angle, this part of E will also be 37.
37.
And if this is 69, this part of E will be
69.
alternate angles. So we'll say 30 E will be equal to 37 plus 69. So what is the value of E?
Hmm. Wait a second. 106.
Is this clear now?
Yes, sir.
So we can make imaginary parallel lines if we are already provided with a pair of parallel lines. We can make imaginary parallel lines and that helps us in solving such questions. Now let's go to a few more questions. Let's attempt it and see how far can we go with it. Okay, yes, class. Now what about part D? How do I find F? What
Sir,
should we
C,
do?
imaginary lines.
Imaginary parallel line.
But sir,
And then what?
we will minus it by 180, no?
Very good. We'll subtract it by 180. This part of F, let me call these two parts F1 and F2. ठीक है ना? So F1, I will say that F1 plus 142 is 180 because and the reason if you want me to write it, they are interior
And
angles,
DL
aren't they?
angles.
So what is the value of F1?
Uh, 38.
38. Similarly, F2 plus 114 is also 180 degree and the proper reason is the same. They are interior angles. So the value of F2 is
66.
66. We split F into 2, 38 plus 66. So what is the value of F?
104.
104. Is this clear now?
Yes, sir.
Moving on to the next one. How do we find G? First find G.
X. Wait a second. So G would be equal to 68 degree.
Very good. And what is the reason?
Sir, corresponding angle.
No.
Yes.
Alternate angles. Do you
But
see
sir,
a Z being made here?
yes. Okay, sorry, sorry.
Is this clear now?
Yes, sir. Z.
Now what about H?
Yes.
There are many ways
So
of finding h as well.
H would be
The easiest one to me is have a look at
H
this
would be
big
27
triangle.
degrees.
No, have a look at this. This is
Oh,
a big
sir,
triangle.
a triangle.
H plus 27 is
H
90.
plus 27 plus is would be equal to 90. Okay.
I've told you for a right angle triangle, you can either add all three and equate it to 180, or you can just add 2, leaving out the 90, and this then say that the sum is 90. It's the same thing. Another way of
Oh,
doing it was this was h, so this will also be h.
yes.
I'll just label it. If this is h, this will also be h. Yes. So h plus 27 is 90 again. So what is the
Yes.
value of h
Sir.
then?
So the answer would be 63.
Yes. And in this one, what will we do?
In this F would be, so this, yes, since this is 290, so
If
so we
this
will
is,
simply divide it in two parts.
no, we do not know that the two parts are equal or not. We cannot assume that. If this is a,
No, no, so like we can do this then 290 minus 15.
yes, yes, you're right. If this is a, can I call this as a as well?
Yes, we can call it as an A.
This is a, and this is 15. So the angle here, this will also be 15. A plus 15 plus 290 is
Yes,
360 angles at a point,
yes.
and simply find
This
a.
will be 360 minus 305,
Hmm.
55 degree.
Is this clear now?
Yes,